And so I help students with their, so I'm student focused, and I help students with their digital projects, with learning tech skills, and with all that kind of fun stuff.
Yeah. And there's our Twitter handles if you want to follow us.
So we want to start this off by asking you, what do service points look like at your libraries? Go ahead and let us know.
If anybody wants to share, do you have you have multiple service points? Have you moved to the single service point model? What do you do, like online support? What's the deal?
And participants, feel free to respond to that in a chat window if that's more comfortable, or feel free to speak that. You may have to unmute your microphone in some cases.
I think just while we're waiting for people to respond, we both came from large R1 institutions when we were in graduate school, and so I came from UNC, and they use a single service model at both the libraries I worked at. What about you?
I came from the University of Michigan, and it was not a single service model. There was a separate circulation and reference desks, and kind of multiple reference desks kind of scattered throughout the libraries.
Do you want to have feedback?
Looks like there's some stuff in the chat, maybe. We'll pull that up.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like you may want to rephrase the question, and I think my chat window may be blocking it there. So
okay, that's okay. So Karen says so our question is like, what do service models look like at your library? And I guess we just mean the sort of walk-in support that students receive. Like, is there one reference desk? Do you have multiple stations in your libraries? What does that look like? So Karen says they're mostly online, so in-person activity is light, one service desk, lots of referrals. Nava, I apologize if I'm saying that wrong, State College with 5 campuses, each of us have our own circulation desks, and an online question, yeah, I got it right. And then info desk, circulation, tech consultation. Awesome.
Great, so a lot of different models for that there. And someone says that they're a small for-profit college and they have a staff of 3, so only have 1 desk.
So 1, okay.
Great, well, thank you for sharing.
Yeah, thank you. So we'll move on to the next one. Please feel free to keep contributing. We'll look at chat periodically. So a little bit about Guilford for a moment. We are a really small liberal arts college in Greensboro. We're a Quaker school with pretty heavy focus on writing. 1,800 students, I think, is what we're looking at. So we, we have 2 distinct desks in the one library that we all use. Anyway, the STARS acronym stands for Student Technology and Research Support, and it was envisioned by people. The head of the library and learning technologies had kind of had a vision for this before we came in, and so we sort of were given some recommendations from her and from our different campus partners, and we sort of consulted with different people, and we'll talk about that. But yeah, that's what the acronym means. And then, so the purpose of it is really to integrate research and different technologies, including learning technologies. More like, we have an LMS here, is Canvas is what we use. And then the IT support, like printer questions, software, different downloads, things like that. We really wanted a place in the, like a single place where students could go to get help with that. And we'll talk about the different service points that existed before we kind of unified these services, but they were sort of isolated. And so it's meant to be, we have something here called the Academic Commons, which I think we'll go over later. And that's really sort of the vision that we have here for bringing together all these different student support departments into one sort of, one space, one unified area. And then our access and information services folks, which handle circulation among many, many other things up front. There are 2 full-time librarians, a part-time librarian, and several student workers up there. And I think the purpose of the STARS desk, which is sort of in the back of the library, was to relieve some of that pressure, because they really do stay very busy up there, and trying to do reference services and technology support was really a tall order for them.
It was hard for them to answer extended questions.
Yeah.
And they were getting a lot of stuff that they couldn't really help with, that wasn't within their purview. A lot of, sort of like the printing questions, kind of IT questions. So
yeah.
So I'll tell you a bit about sort of who our collaborators were in this STARS venture. So from the library, we had ourselves from Research and Educational Services, that's our department, and also the folks in Access and Information Services kind of providing their expertise and vision as well. And then outside of the library, we had Information Technology and Services, and also the Learning Commons, which is the peer tutoring service here on campus. So we all came together, and the vision was to provide a service point right on the first floor of the library, right by where all the first floor computers and kind of collaborative workstations are, and provide a space where folks could ask questions and get answers where usually they would have been getting answers from all of these kind of disparate spots throughout the building and throughout campus.
And I think one thing, another thing that's not, we'll talk about it later, we partner with the honors program as well. So it's really sort of a cross, and the director of the honors program, her office is here in the library. So we really, lots of people wearing lots of hats at Guilford, but yeah, so let's go on.
So some of the pre-existing service points predating the STARS desk. So it's the information desk, access information desk at the front of the library, handles circulation needs, reserves, cataloging, directional questions, and help with kind of help with stuff in the stack. So both, you know, helping patrons and then all the things behind the scenes in terms of the physical collection. And then from IT&S, or Information Technology and Services, they're in a building across campus. It's near the student center, so it's, you know, it's accessible to students that way, but it's not so accessible when you're here in the library and you have sort of information technology need, which is often pressing. And they've got an existing staff of student workers and are responsible for a whole host of operations across campus. Sort of the ones that are most pressing for students are things like printing, their student accounts, that kind of thing, passwords, all that great stuff. And then also sort of librarian offices are a service point. We're all here in the library. We're a small library. Folks recognize our faces. Yeah. So we get a lot of drop-ins and then consultations made, you know, through reservation. And we did have in last semester occasional desk hours at what would become the STARS desk to kind of put ourselves out there and be answering questions for people who needed something, you know, right then and there. Mm-hmm. And also something, another sort of a service point, the Learning Commons, which I mentioned before, our peer tutoring service here on campus, they do have an office upstairs here in the library, in the building. And they also it's not exactly a designated service point, but they did notice that they were getting, you know, if someone was on the second floor and they had a question, they would kind of drift over to the Learning Commons because they have a desk, an open desk there to help students make their tutoring appointments and set those things up. So they noticed that they were getting a lot of questions about the LMS, about email, about things that they weren't really equipped to help with.
And I think another thing is that we did not we don't have a chat service that's specific to Guilford. So it's not a sort of thing where students could just sort of go on and use like library help chat or any of those platforms. We use the NCNO software. So getting specific on campus help at a really short notice could sometimes be a challenge beforehand. So this is what we had before. It's called the Research and Referral Desk. Or it was called the Research and Referral Desk in this office here. As you'll learn in just a moment, we sort of inherited all of this. We came on board in July of last year, so extremely recent, and we just kind of, this is what we were kind of presented with. My office is right here. The door is now glass. It's meant to just provide a lot of visibility for students. They can see, you know, they can get a hold of me really easily. Faculty research support is also a large part of what I do. So folks just being able to walk up and walk in just in the first couple weeks that we've had this desk open is really nice. It's the students sit here now. We'll have a picture to show you later, but it's been really nice that they can get their basic questions answered, and then we could sort of do instant walk-in referrals as well. And so before, our understanding is that there was at some point a graduate intern from a nearby school, UNCG, from their LIS program, who did a great job, did a lot of really good LibGuides work. But other than that, by the time we got here, that intern was not part of the program anymore, and so we didn't have any student workers working back there. It was just the access and information services folks up front. So kind of bare, kind of just in need of a little bit of TLC. So you'll see what we did with it.
So in terms of our timeline, so as Rachel said, we started in July of 2016, so very recently. So this accelerated, and I think the fact that there was the existing infrastructure in terms of that pre-existing desk helped a lot, because it was more the kind of figuring out the vision for things and how that would work, as opposed to sort of having to like physically do construction. So that was helpful. So summer 2016 we were hired, and that's kind of when the meetings began to start planning this. Once we were on board and we started figuring out sort of what the goals of this would be, what the purpose this would be, what students would be doing here at this desk.
And then in the fall, once students came back, things sort of really got rolling, and I think we kept meeting as a committee. We decided what we were going to call this desk. STARS is not our acronym. I can't remember the name of the institution that someone on the committee had seen it at and really liked that idea, but we adopted that from another successful desk. We came up with a plan of action, like some actual steps that we wanted to take. I think our meetings in the summer were more conceptual, and then once students came back and we saw how the flow of questions were kind of working, we decided, okay, here's exactly how we'd like to do this. A lot of logistics going through, thinking about different hours, like what services did we want to provide, because we are an extremely small school, but the volume of questions that we were getting, actually, it really surprised me personally. Like there's a lot going on. And then we also made, at the very end of the fall semester, a transition to a completely new printer system. And so we began to feel a little bit of pressure there, as far as, the tide of questions is coming for sure at that point.
And then in January 2017, Guilford had this was actually the last one, but they had what was called a January term. So there were classes in session just for that month, that students could choose to take one intensive class over the course of a month, or they could just kind of be on winter break and come back for the spring semester. So in January 2017 is when we were able to get a lot of work done, since there were sort of fewer people on campus, and so their kind of needs were reduced in terms of what folks needed from us. And so we were able to begin our interviews and begin the hiring process, and then also begin the task of creating and assembling training materials, which we house in a Canvas course for our students.
Excuse me, I've got a cough as well. Thank you. So in the spring semester, this is late January, very early February, we actually opened the desk, kept hiring people. I think that we just finished up our hiring process. We hired the last student to kind of complete our staff, actually just a week or two ago. But we've gotten through that by now. Student training's ongoing. We're really liking the Canvas course, and I think that particular, it's a nice asynchronous method of delivery. It's hard to get all those students. We have 13 students that work for us in some capacity, so getting them all together is a challenge. So Canvas allows us to do a lot of stuff. And then we've just been working on troubleshooting. I think neither of us have been managers before, and so that sort of human aspect of it there's been some unexpected opportunities for learning, so we'll talk about that a little bit as well.
And I'll say, in terms of training, I think I forgot to mention, so the training that we've envisioned is a lot of work they're being trained on the job, basically. So we've created materials and things that they can work through while they're at the desk, kind of during downtime when there aren't as many questions, because we knew we wouldn't have the time with kind of the tight turnaround between hiring and folks starting in the spring. We wanted to be able to launch the desk right that first week of the spring semester. So we envisioned it that way, so that we would not have to sort of bring them all in for a day or two of training. So it's been kind of soft rollout process.
Yeah, we had a quick orientation session, but that's really been the only opportunity, one of the only opportunities to get them all together. So yeah, Canvas has been really successful for us.
Yeah. And so the vision for the STARS desk, we kind of adopted it. I think it's something from IT&S. They've got these levels of support. So questions can escalate from that first level, level one of sort of basic needs. If someone's coming in with a more complex question, those can be kind of escalated upwards to folks who are more equipped to deal with a more complex question. So we adopted that model. So you can see here at the bottom, we've got the desk assistants, who are our vision for the level one support. And they're students who haven't really like specialized in the kind of the tracks that we've got set, that we'll tell you a bit about more later. So a lot of them are actually first or second year students. So they're new to campus as well. So they're helping folks with the kind of the basic questions. And then for things that they can't answer, they kind of escalate those upwards to the appropriate stream. And we'll talk to you a little bit more about those, which is kind of that middle layer in green.
Yeah. So the first part is the research interns, and that's a partnership with the honors program, and I work with them. There are just 2 students this semester as we're sort of piloting it, and their goal is really to develop a protocol as an early intervention into the research process. When a student first comes and says, you know, I think I really need to talk to someone one-on-one about this research I'm trying to do for my course, can you help me? I take a lot of those questions now, but my research interns are actually going to start pretty shortly doing one-on-one consultations of their own, kind of a peer-to-peer model. I think that's been something that was really part of the plan from the beginning, was for the level 2 support to be student to student, and we really value those kind of relationships at Guilford, so I think it's a nice reflection on our values. And like I said, that's a partnership with the honors program, so it was nice to be able to get them involved.
And then kind of a one over is the IT&S students, and so that's the level 2 student staff within the Information Technology and Services Department, and they're equipped to handle more complex IT questions, things like password resets that, you know, someone with a more basic skill set can't really help someone with. But the goal is for the desk assistants to be able to catch kind of all those more basic questions that the library was having to send people to IT&S for, when it was really just a matter of, you know, oh, the printer's jammed, let's kind of fiddle with it, or, you know, things like that. And then the last sort of stream of level 2 support that we have are students who are working under me, and that's technology tutors, and that's something that was created in partnership with the Learning Commons, which is our campus, the tutoring service. And so the goal there was, once again, like with the research interns, for a sort of a peer-to-peer model of learning and teaching. And the idea behind that was for students coming in with kind of in-depth technology needs. The Learning Commons was not equipped to handle, you know, someone would come in for a tutoring appointment and, you know, maybe for looking at a paper, and then this tutor would be getting questions about formatting things in Microsoft Word that they, you know, weren't necessarily sure how to explain to someone, or they didn't really have those skills. So the idea here was that for the technology tutors to be kind of an in-depth help, you know, someone you could make an appointment with, or someone you could kind of come to the desk and spend time with for, you know, half an hour, and be able to get help from them in that in-depth way. So, yeah.
And another thing is, I think with our program, we've tried to emphasize that this is not gatekeeping. It's not that we're not available for student needs. It's that we want to give our students the opportunity to develop these skills and to kind of teach each other. And then we're always available to answer questions and talk to people, and the really complicated sort of in-depth questions would go to us. And I think that our students seem to understand that really well. It's just a nice sort of intervention, and they get some practice. I plan to try to convince both of my research interns to go to library school, because they've been really great. And then desk assistants have the opportunity eventually to step into one of the level 2 roles, because they're younger students, but I think our goal is for them to be able to transition. If they say, oh, wow, I really like the work that the tech tutors are doing, and they're interested, we can, you know, we want to put them into those roles.
Yeah, so the idea is for them to like specialize and get those skills.
Yeah.
And then in terms of level 3 support, that's the 2 of us, that's the IT&S full-time staff. So those are the folks that the students can send people with complex questions to us. But the idea was that we can have this coverage that when we're not in the office, when we're busy, when we're in meetings, when we're out, you know, and also in the evenings and weekends, to be able to provide this kind of support. So especially, for example, the technology tutors, we've scheduled them a lot of evenings and weekends, so that when someone really needs, you know, it's quite a pain point, that need for tech help. They're there till about 8 p.m. in evenings, and then for afternoons on Saturdays and Sundays, and they can help with that.
Yeah. Okay, so next slide, sorry. So the level 2 support we'll talk a little bit more about. I think we've sort of explained the basics to you. Some current projects that, excuse me, the research interns are working on. There's a really awesome Canvas course from Zoe Fisher, who was at Pierce College at the time that she developed it. I've been taking the research interns through that course. It actually explains in a very student-oriented way that Zoe came up with the ACRL framework, and kind of how we're thinking about information literacy and doing some of that. And I think it's been an interesting experience, because I can sort of see how students are going to react to that sort of thing, and it gets them thinking about how we can kind of incorporate some of those things in subtle ways into what we're doing. And then I have a bunch of activities that I've tried to incorporate into sessions around the framework, and some not really framework based. And so they're testing out some of those, giving me feedback from a student's perspective. And I think, eventually they'll help me develop some things. So it's what they're working on.
Yeah, and in terms of the technology tutors, they came into the game a little bit later. We hired them about 2 weeks later than we hired the other students. So they're kind of still in the throes of training. But the goal, they came in with specialized skills with students who have a particular experience with different softwares. We've got a handful of students who are in our computing technology and information services program here on campus, so can provide help with material from those classes, but also just kind of from the basic stuff of things in G Suite apps, and also Microsoft Office, that kind of thing, the technology that students are interacting with on a daily basis. And so the goal there is for the students to kind of keep training while on the job, and to keep deepening their skills and their understanding, to be able to provide more and more help to folks in need here on campus, especially as we're exploring new softwares and things. I think we've got their plans for media editing software and things that we don't have yet, but we'll be getting. So we're hoping that the technology tutors can lead the charge and learn these things and help teach the campus. And so in terms of interdepartmental relationships, that was something that was kind of just not a challenge exactly, but just something that it made things more difficult sometimes, just trying to gather folks from all these different departments across campus in terms of navigating busy schedules. There's, we were new stepping in here, but there's past history with things that we didn't necessarily know about. So those are some things that made things tricky at some points. But it was definitely a great experience to get so many people together and think about all the different skills that we wanted our students to have, different skill sets, what we wanted them to be able to, help the folks coming up to the desk with. Although it certainly was a challenge trying to pare that down from, when you think about what an IT&S student skill set is, it's pretty wide, but then you can't expect your students to have the whole spectrum of that, and also the whole spectrum of helping with basic research questions and basic, learning technologies questions and general library questions. So trying to have that vision of what exactly we wanted our students to know was something that was tricky at times. But I think we had a lot of good conversations and good meetings about that. So it was great to be able to get together with folks and bring this off the ground.
Some challenges that we've had with student workers, like I said, this is our first time, each of us, managing student workers, and so lots of lessons here, just teaching them about, professionalism, timeliness, staying on task, just a lot of the typical things that you'd expect. And then learning about new technologies and spaces. We're a very technology-focused library here, and I think that we have a lot of things that students have never encountered before, a lot of classrooms that they're expected to help with the setup and kind of maintenance of. So those are definitely some things that we've had to think about and evaluate. So we send weekly messages, and we give them tasks to do every week and to make sure that they complete through Canvas, and Canvas has been a great tool for us to keep track of that work. We've tried to have targeted trainings. We did printer training just this last week. Someone from IT actually came over and did 2 separate sessions on printers, and so that was really helpful because they've sort of been doing it on the fly in the last couple of weeks, so getting some firm training was really helpful. We've shadowed the students over the last couple of weeks. We've been shadowing each of them, observing, and just kind of making sure that everyone's doing what they need to do. A lot of peer learning. They are on shifts at the same time quite a bit, and so where certain people might have experience in some things, they can kind of teach other folks. A lot of questions that I think have seemed really basic in our minds maybe haven't seemed so basic and obvious to students, so they're able to kind of help each other. And then group trainings, we're planning to do some more of those, some more in-person sort of things as we can, depending. So, and then our next steps, I think a really big goal of ours is to continue to keep those interdepartmental relationships going, make sure everyone's on the same page and feeling good about the progress we're making. we do have some projects in mind that we'd like students to help out with, just certain maintenance-related things that we haven't had time to do yet. So that's going to be something we're looking forward to. And then we really want students to continue this sort of peer learning process and to be able to train each other and help each other figure out what it is that they'd like to do with their work.
And that picture is a picture of the desk as it is now. So
That's how it is now.
It's got the correct name up at the top now, and so the basic infrastructure of the desk I think hasn't changed a whole lot. Though I think we're going to be setting up another computer since we often have 2 student staff there, and we're looking forward to seeing how things evolve. And it's certainly now a much more lively space with folks working there than it was when we were only being able to staff it, for a couple of hours at a time.
Right.
So thanks very much. That was kind of what we had to say about getting the STARS desk off the ground here at Higgy Library. And we're happy to take any questions that you have or any discussion, any way you want to take this. We're happy to hear your thoughts. Thanks so much.
I saw a chat.
All right, there's some chat.
Oh, thank you.
And participants, I've muted you, but if you would like to ask a question verbally, I can unmute you, or I believe you can unmute yourself if you would like to ask a question, and or you could type your questions in the chat line. The chat history and this presentation will be recorded and archived for future use if you like.
Looks like we've got a question.
So what type of difficulties have we encountered between different departments? I think one of the biggest challenges for us was that these meetings around this desk started immediately after we were hired. I think the day of or the day after. Yeah, so for us, the context of it, again, this is our first sort of professional gig after library school. So we're trying to deal with a lot of different things, and then sort of hearing about this project and not having a ton of context around it made things a bit difficult, at least for me personally.
It was hard coming into a vision that was already, it wasn't fully established, but was certainly well on its way in terms of being information. So that was something that was challenging, I think, for us.
So we've had to work with the Access and Information Services Department. Those ladies are really great. They've had student workers for a very long time, and I think are really good about giving us tips on how to manage that and how to a lot of the logistical questions that we hadn't thought about. There have been some challenges with, I think, just working with like IT&S, because I think they're very, very busy. This is an incredibly busy time of year for them. And so trying to coordinate schedules so we can get student workers over here and just trying to make sure that everybody's on the same page has proved to be kind of difficult. But they've been really cooperative, and we've really tried to maintain that focus on the group vision, the interdepartmental vision. That's really important to our library director and to us.
Yeah.
You want to take that one?
Yeah, it looks like we've got another question. So how did any of your planning and now current use intersect with the library resources available online? And that's a really great question. I think a big thing that was, at least in terms of the technology thought process, we've got something called Atomic Learning, which is, I don't know if any of your institutions have subscriptions, but it's basically a resource with a lot of sort of virtual training modules on a whole variety of topics, many technology focused, but actually quite a few like on some sort of basic research skills and sort of study skills, things like that. So that was something that we envisioned it was more from the end of sort of training student workers as opposed to getting the word out there about it. But I think that's a kind of a secondary goal too, is in using it to help train our student workers. It's something that will kind of spread across campus, because it's something very useful that I direct people to often that for the most part they haven't really heard of it. They don't realize that we have this subscription to something that they can have, if they have an on-demand, need for something regarding a question regarding, from big stuff to like learning a software to kind of the little stuff, they can parse through it and get that help on demand whenever they want. So that's been one element of our collection that this is kind of highlighted.
We've also, we've done some training around just catalog use. We don't expect desk assistants, that sort of first level of support, to be able to answer very in-depth questions, but we do expect them to be able to navigate, explain to a student who might be curious where they can find databases and how they could use, the different facets of the catalog to search around, where our subject guides are and our research guides. So I think that the online resources that we have available, that's something that we certainly have tried to incorporate into training. And I think that it's becoming clear. Our students that work at the desk are actually proving to be a nice sample of the students that we have on campus, because I think I noticed patterns with them, maybe not knowing about something ahead of time that probably we need to increase awareness of throughout the Guilford community. I think there are a lot of underutilized resources. And so just making, they've been a nice sort of sample study to kind of think about what we could possibly be doing better in terms of promoting resources. So that's been something.
And especially on such a small campus, our population of student workers, you know, when they're outside of the library, we've got student athletes, we've got diverse years of students, so they're out there interacting with other students. They're there as a resource for peers, even when they're off the desk. You know, I think they'll be able to kind of point people in the right directions and disseminate information about sort of new items in the collection, new services, new things that the library is trying in ways that are really great. And it's just the Guilford size, I think, makes that really easy, because we've taught classes and we'll see our student workers in classes and stuff. Kind of, it's one of those campuses where everyone kind of recognizes who everyone else is, even if you don't necessarily know them. So I think that's something that's an asset in this.
Yeah. So to answer the next question, how's the STARS desk promoted? Social media announcements on Canvas. That's a good question. We're sort of in that process right now. We have our own personal or our own professional Twitter accounts as individuals. There's also an RES, Research and Educational Services specific account that we use. It's at Ask Heggie Library. And then the library in general also has its own Twitter account. So lots of promotion on Twitter. We've tried to send out announcements that, hey, this resource is available. Whoever runs the Guilford College account is actually really good about retweeting and helping to promote things for us. So Twitter's been a major tool. I think we need to get into sort of the foray of Facebook. There is a library Facebook page, and just connecting with that and getting the word out that way. There's also a daily newsletter that goes out to the whole campus. It's called The Buzz. And you submit announcements at least a day in advance. There's a form online in the intranet, and I think that's been a nice tool to use. We sent out something when it first started. Another great thing about having all these departments involved in the development of this is that they all know about it, and they're all sort of promoting it to their users. And so we're getting sort of a wide variety of folks who I think wouldn't have used the desk if we hadn't collaborated with other departments.
And it's positioned pretty prominently in the library. You can see the desk as you're walking in the front entryway. It's kind of in the back of the first floor, but you can immediately see it and see that it's staffed when there are students at the desk. So I think that really helps as well. And it's by one of the sort of high use areas of the first floor here, so people can just kind of walk up and see it. And I think also, just once again, being such a small campus has helped a lot, because I think we mentioned the STARS desk in our classes as a resource for help, especially evenings and weekends when we're not necessarily here in the office, that folks can come to the STARS desk for their research and technology questions.
And our head of department, her name is Mika Davis. She's our digital pedagogy and scholarship technologist. She is really creative and I think really good about figuring out how to get the word out. There are announcement types on Canvas that you can do. What are they called? Global announcements?
Yeah, global announcements.
And so she posted some things about that when we first opened, and I just a lot of promotion things.
She's promoted on the faculty as well.
Yeah, she's on the faculty development committee, and we sit on different committees at campus, and I think so spreading the word that way, and it's very much a word of mouth situation, I think, is our main method of promotion. Again, such a tiny campus community. It's not been as much of a barrier as it might be at other places.
Are there other questions? Well, if not, thank you so much. It was great talking to you.
If you have other questions, you have our emails and our Twitter handles here. You can always feel free to contact us, and we'll be glad to share resources with you. So.
And we're happy if you want to share any resources with us.
Yeah, we will take any suggestions that you have, for sure.
I'd like to remind participants to take the survey at the end of this. There's a link in the chat line here if you want to copy and paste that. And this will be archived for later viewing.
Great.
Thanks, guys. Wonderful presentation.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Derek.
Everybody have a great day. Bye.
Bye.